Welcome to this explainer. We're about to go on a really fascinating journey into the hidden mechanics of your very own mind. So, if you've ever felt totally exhausted by that endless, nonstop chatter in your head, well, you're in the right place. The concepts we're exploring today are absolutely crucial. They will fundamentally shift how you interact with reality itself. Let's unpack the secret of witness consciousness. Right off the bat, I want to ask you something, and I really want you to pause and feel this right in this exact moment. If you can notice your thoughts, who is the one noticing them? Seriously, think about it. Right now, as you listen to my voice, a little thought might be popping up. Maybe your mind is analyzing what I'm saying or wondering what's next. But if there is a thought and there is a you knowing that thought is happening, what exactly is that knowing presence? Section 1, the invisible mind lip. Okay, so to answer that question about the observer, we first have to recognize the core problem trapping pretty much all of us, and that's complete identification. This is just our default human state. In this stage, there is absolutely zero distinction between your thoughts and your identity. Basically, whatever the mind says feels like the absolute unquestionable truth. It's kind of like being in a movie theater, right? You know when you are watching a really intense movie and you get so completely sucked into the story that you literally forget you're just a person sitting in a chair eating popcorn? You are totally merged with the drama on the screen. Well, for most of our lives, we are doing the exact same thing, but with a movie playing inside our heads. We believe every single thought implicitly. And honestly, the stakes here are incredibly high. Spiritual teacher Michael Singer illustrates this brilliantly. He says, you are lost in it. You're in the rapids, drowning, trying to keep your head above the water. When we are completely identified with our mind, we aren't just kicking back and observing. No, we are frantically trying to survive this rushing, chaotic river of our own thoughts and emotions. We're literally just trying to gasp for air. Let's dive into section 2, entering witness consciousness. Because there is a way out of those rapids. We don't have to keep drowning. We can actually step right out of that mental river and learn to become the silent observer. We've mapped out this progressive journey inward for you. We are going to use these 5 distinct stages to navigate from our default chaos all the way to unshakable well-being. It starts with just that first glimpse, where you suddenly realize, wait a second, I can actually see my thoughts happening. And then it moves progressively toward a stabilized, permanent perspective. The great sage Nisargadatta Maharaj describes this witness state perfectly. He calls it the changeless background in which all experiences arise and set. That brilliantly points out what we are aiming for here, a perspective that sees all the noise, all the events, just come and go without being swept away by them. It's exactly like stepping onto the riverbank and just watching the water flow by. So, practically speaking, how do we actually do this? Well, in stages 2 and 3, you start by simply observing your thoughts. When you mentally zoom out, you begin to watch these completely outrageous thoughts that are constantly running through your mind. And you'll probably notice the loudest voices first. You know, that super loud inner critic or that inner control freak. But the amazing thing is, when you just sit there and witness these loud thoughts without reacting, without fighting them, they actually start to quiet down all on their own. But hey, it's not just thoughts we're dealing with. We also have to observe our emotions, those deep, painful currents. Now, Michael Singer points out something wildly paradoxical about this. Normally, when we feel a deep emotional disturbance, it's like hitting a massive rock in a rushing river. We hate it, right? We want to avoid it at all costs. But Singer says you actually need to be excited when you find these emotional rocks. Because think about it, if you don't see the rocks, you can never remove them. So when you hit a painful emotion, your whole attitude needs to shift to, oh, wow, okay, I found a blockage. Now I can finally observe it and let it go. As those loud thoughts and emotions start to settle down, you can start observing the deepest layer, your core beliefs. These are basically the invisible rules running your entire life. Beliefs like, I am not good enough, or there is something wrong with me. They are incredibly common, but completely invisible when we are identified with them. But here is the crucial takeaway. The more you use your witness consciousness to observe these subtle beliefs, the less convincing they become. They get unmasked for what they really are, just mental noise, not reality. Moving right along. Section 3. Unplugging the mental fan. Now we enter stage 4, which is where this observation actually becomes a permanent feature of your daily experience. To really grasp this, we need to demystify a word you've probably heard a million times: karma. If you strip away all the mysticism, karma is simply the tendency for energy to follow established, conditioned pathways in your mind. It's that mental momentum that keeps your unconscious patterns running on complete autopilot. Basically, it's the law of inertia, just applied to your psychology. Now, what's really interesting about this next concept is the analogy of a spinning fan. Think of your mind like a fan. Every single time you identify with a thought or react to a preference or a judgment, you are actively plugging the fan in. You're feeding it electricity. But when you rest in awareness, it's literally like pulling the plug. Now, does the fan stop immediately the second you pull the plug? Of course not. The inertia of those blades is going to keep it spinning for a while. Your mind will definitely keep chattering. But, and this is a big but, if you don't plug it back in by reacting, it is absolutely guaranteed to eventually come to a complete standstill. And honestly, this completely changes the game for how we view practices like meditation. Singer gives this great advice. He points out that sitting for, say, 15 minutes a day isn't about forcefully wrestling your mind into silence. If you sit for 15 minutes and your mind just goes absolutely crazy, but you remain aware that it's going crazy, guess what? You have actually just achieved a very high state of witnessing. You just spent 15 solid minutes leaving the fan unplugged and simply watching the blade spin. That is a massive victory. Let's look at section 4, pure awareness and Samadhi. So, if we persist with all this, we reach the climax of our journey, stage 5. Now notice the crucial distinction Nisargadatta Maharaj makes here. Even the state of being the witness is still slightly dualistic, right? Because it implies there's someone watching something else. You are aware of the mind. But eventually, the witness itself dissolves into pure awareness. Pure awareness isn't an experience you have. It has no subject and no object. It is the total, changeless, silent background where all experiences appear. It is simply pure presence. In Eastern traditions, this profound leap is often pointed to with the Sanskrit word shunyata, which translates to voidness or emptiness. But you have to understand, it's not some dead, dark emptiness. Not at all. It is a vibrant state where the whole duality of stillness and movement entirely collapses. When we reach this primordial awareness, we're basically dropping that reducing valve of our self-structure, our ego, and interfacing directly with reality itself, completely unmediated by the limited mind. It is quite literally emptiness dancing. But here is the ultimate paradox you run into. The mind will always fail in any attempt to realize stillness, because the mind is movement. I mean, think about it. You cannot possibly think your way into this state. The mind desperately wanting to know how to stop doing things, well, that's just more doing. You have to make a radical shift. You must shift from doing to simply being. All right, let's move to section 5, stabilizing the witness, and see how this all builds into our daily lives. We need to bring these lofty spiritual concepts back down to practical daily reality. So here are 4 highly actionable practices straight from our sources that will actively stop you from plugging that mental fan back in. First, take short awareness pauses. Literally, just stop for a few seconds during your day and ask, okay, what is happening in my mind right now? Second, bring your attention to simple sensory experiences, like your breathing, walking, or just listening. This snaps you right out of the mental loop. Third, actively observe your internal narrator. Start treating that voice in your head as a fascinating, quirky process, not the undisputed truth. And finally, whenever you realize you've gotten completely lost in thought again, gently return to awareness. No force, no self-judgment, just notice it and kindly step back onto the riverbank. Because ultimately, the goal of this entire journey isn't to destroy your thoughts or somehow escape reality. Not at all. It's to recognize something much deeper. The freedom you were looking for was always here, in the silent awareness witnessing your life. So as you go about your day-to-day, I want to leave you with this one final provocative thought. The next time a really stressful thought pops into your head, Pause and ask yourself, who exactly is the one watching that thought? Keep practicing, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.